So she's going to decide.
So, good evening, everyone, and hello and welcome. Oh, here we go. We've got somebody else joining us. I think I need to take off the I don't know how to do it. Yeah, take that off now. People should be able to just join if they want to come in, hopefully. Right, so I'm sorry about the last minute change of venue, but YouTube have changed all their settings just recently, and I can't get a guest onto YouTube anymore. So, and I didn't know that until we were fiddling around today, and yeah, we realized we've got this note from YouTube to say that they've stopped doing that. They've stopped allowing you to bring a guest on. So
now I had to fly all the way to England.
I did say, why didn't Jill just fly over? What's the problem?
It would be really lovely to. We will absolutely have to do that again. It was lovely when you came to visit us. So yeah,
we did do a live webinar then.
We did. So yeah, it would be really great if you could come and visit us again. I was thinking that maybe next year, we've got our conference in November, coming up in November, and then we'll be doing the conference again next year. So I was thinking we should have a conversation about you coming over and speaking at our conference next year. Let's have that conversation one day. That would be really good. It would be really great to have you here again. So yes, lovely Jill. For those of you who don't know Jill, she is the author of this lovely book, When She Came to Visit Us. Yeah. When she came to visit us, she signed our copy somewhere. We have got your signature in there somewhere. Can't find
it. A couple pages. There's a blank page.
It's in here somewhere. I was looking. It's gone. Oh, there it is.
Maybe I forgot to sign yours.
No,
there it is.
Proof that we were with. Well,
that someday that autograph will be worth something. So hold on to that.
That's why I'm holding on to this book. That's why I never give this book away. Hi, Sue. Hi, Alana. Hi, everybody. Hi, Gavin. It's really great to have so many of you joining us this evening. Yes, and I have got the lovely Jill as my guest. So, yeah, and breathe. It's really cool that we're talking about anxiety this evening, because just before everybody joined us on the call, I was telling Jill, I'm looking after, my daughter has gone on holiday. She went on holiday today, and I'm looking after her dog, but the dog is staying at he was at her house at the moment. So I thought, I've just nicely got time to pop over to my daughter's and feed the dog and be back in plenty of time to be on this call. And then when we started to drive out, one of the roads was closed between where I live and my daughter's house. And so our journey there and our journey back turned out. So then, my thinking started to say, you're going to be late. What's going to happen? You're not going to be back in time to be on the call. You're going to be late for the call. What if anybody else, normally my thinking does things like, nobody will come on the call. Nobody will even know that you're doing this call. And now, obviously, tonight, my thinking's going, there'll be loads of people waiting, and everybody will be there waiting, and you won't be there.
And really mad, too. We were all really mad about it.
And then she said, I've got to do my hair. I've got to go to the toilet.
I got back, and I was dying to go to the loo, and I'd got caught in the rain earlier. I have crazy hair anyway, but it was looking even crazier than it normally looks. So then I had a hair story, and so
I had the same thing. Isn't that interesting that we all have the same thing? Because I had just come back from my bar class, which is an exercise class, and I sort of forgot I was even doing this, and all of a sudden I'm like, what am I doing? Am I doing anything this afternoon? I feel like I have a call or something. And I mean, it was in my calendar, so I would have known. But and then I'm like, oh yeah, I've got that thing with Deb at 2 my time, and I'm looking at my clock in the car. I'm like, oh, it's getting late. I got to have lunch. Same thing. I got to get lunch. I've got my bar class hair. It didn't really bother me, but I had to keep looking at the time and stuff. I think you and I probably are past worrying about it too much. I would assume.
Yeah, we were. because one of the roads was closed, it meant that the road that we go on is normally a very, very empty, quiet road, but the other road to my daughter's house is closed. So all the main road traffic, if you like, was going. So there were two buses that the road is too small for a bus to go down. And there was two buses, one had come this way and one had come this way, and they were kind of having a bit of a Mexican standoff as to, you know, who was going to shift out of the way and one thing and another. And exactly like you say, my head was kind of going, I wonder how long we'll be sat here waiting for these buses to work this out. And I was like, well, I'll either be back or I won't. You know, it's kind of like, where there definitely would have been a time. I mean, my thinking was definitely kind of doing stuff. Like, our thinking kind of does stuff, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You
And
know?
really, like, that's what I'm thinking. For me, you know, I was just driving home, whatever, not. And before my thoughts went to, what do I have to do this afternoon? You know, I had one feeling. And then once I remembered I had this, all of a sudden the thoughts started going, well, what do I have to do before that? You know, do I have to prepare anything? No, you know, but whatever. I do want to have lunch. Like, what am I going to eat? You know, but it's interesting how until my thoughts started going there, it was I was living in a whole different experience.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? The way that our thinking does that, and our experience, as our thinking changes, our experience completely changes. You know, I watched mine kind of go, oh my gosh, there can't be buses on this road in the way. Well, actually, there are buses on this road in the way. There absolutely can be, because look, the evidence is there they are.
And that too is a key point in all this, right? Because most of the time what's happening is what's happening. You know, we have some control, or we think we do. We probably have a lot less than we think we do. But in a situation like you were in, you definitely didn't have control, you know. So you could suffer and you know, really go crazy. What am I going to do? We're going to miss this thing, you know, just whatever. You know, you could really be suffering and getting really anxious, building up to a whole panic attack even. Or you can be like, okay, it is what it is. What am I going to, you know, I mean, there's nothing I can do about it. So why suffer too? You know, yes, you can do whatever you can do to get home as quickly as possible, but at least you don't have to add to it and suffer.
Yeah, that's one thing that I have really, really seen, that the suffering is kind of, I do that, if you like, to myself. It's kind of like when, you know, my thinking, and I guess with other people as well, our thinking does what our thinking does. You know, it kind of, thoughts occur to us, you know, like you said with you today, you're kind of merrily going along. Yeah, it's just Wednesday, you're just doing what you do on a Wednesday. Then all of a sudden you're thinking, so are you supposed to be somewhere? Are you supposed to be doing something? And your experience shifts. And we kind of, those thoughts just happen. You know, they're just not there 1 minute and they are there the next. And then, yeah, like with that example with me today, you know, I could really see, actually, you know, you could really go into this thinking, you know, you could really kind of go into, tell a story and invite all this thoughts friends in for tea, you know, and go into this whole, how you shouldn't do that and you should know better and you should have checked and blah 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 blah, whatever it is.
Shoulding all over yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah, shoulding everywhere. Or you can just kind of, yeah, just let that, and definitely I have seen how I don't have to suffer the amount that I used to suffer in circumstances like that. Yeah.
And sometimes, I don't know about you, but I still do.
Yep. It does feel slightly different somehow when I suffer these, not always, but very, very often when I'm in position, you know, when thinking happens in that kind of way, whatever it is, when unhelpful thinking, for a you know, want of a better way of saying it, happens, it doesn't feel quite the same as before I had any inkling at all. It kind of almost comes with a little bit of a, yeah, I'm just, you know, I'm unhelpful thinking. And you still absolutely get the you know, your feelings. I can absolutely see that you know, what I'm thinking and my feelings are connected, because things can start going crazy. My heart rate can go and stuff can kind of happen. But somehow, I don't know, there's definitely something different about having some inkling of seeing what's going on. There's definitely some freedom.
I find for me, it depends. Like if I catch it early enough, if I, and I think to me, this is why I always tell people that awareness is so key. Awareness of how we're feeling. If I notice that little bit of anxiety coming in, or just any kind of, just a off feeling, not feeling happy go lucky like I usually feel. If I notice that and realize it, and sometimes even notice the thought. I don't have to necessarily notice the thought. Sometimes I'll realize, oh my God, I'm thinking about that thing in the future that I have no control over anyway, and I don't know that that's how it's going to end up. And I can sometimes, if I notice that, be like, well, that's dumb. Why am I doing this? And it's not so much changing thoughts, even though to a certain extent I feel like I do that in a way. I just sort of like, why go there? And that alone sometimes just, then thoughts go on to something new. But sometimes, and this doesn't happen as much for me anymore, is if I don't realize it, if I think something's really, really happening right now, even though it's future thinking, because anxiety is pretty much always future thinking. But if it feels really real in the moment, I can still get wound up and, and before I know it, I don't generally go into like I don't really have panic attacks, but I can be pretty stuffed full of, thoughts where it doesn't matter. Like I could tell myself, oh, it's just my thought, or, oh, it will just pass. And that sometimes actually makes it worse because I'm adding, more thought on top of thoughts, and then beating myself up for having anxiety after I wrote a book about anxiety. You can go down that rabbit hole. Generally, that doesn't happen as much because of awareness, though. That's why awareness is just so key.
I love that. Yeah, that awareness is key. And I can really see, and I think kind of for me, like I guess sort of part of the awareness is knowing myself. Like I've kind of got to know the things that my thinking does, and I kind of know my weak spots as well, and I kind of know that if thought presses a particular button, if you like, I'm kind of like, oh yeah, you're doing that one to me again, aren't you? So definitely, that is, awareness, aware of what is going on, aware of how this works, aware of how it affects me and what it's done. And that has made a massive difference to the state that I can get myself into and not get myself into. It's made a huge difference. I had in our group, I don't think the ladies on here today, but somebody asked a question which sparked quite a nice discussion, and I just kind of wondered, I thought it might be nice to discuss here tonight, because this was definitely something that I got very confused around. So this lady said that she'd watched something, I don't know whether she'd watched it or read something of Sydney Banks anyway, that Sid had kind of said, and she'd sort of heard a lot of people talk about, the fact that we don't change our thoughts, thoughts just change and we can't change our thinking. And then this lady said that she'd either watched something or read something that Sid had said, and I am aware of seeing this too, and Sid had said about our thoughts affecting us in that way, and if we change our thinking, then our experience would change. So she said, I'm really, really confused, because is Sid telling us to change our thoughts or not change our thoughts? And I just was interested what your take is on that. What would you say about that? And maybe we could have a discussion about how we both see that.
I think I have heard that too. Some of his some of his older stuff, he would say things like that. For one thing, he may have meant, and who knows, right? We can try and define what he meant or all day long, but he may have just been trying to say when your thoughts change. your feelings will change. But the other piece of that is I'm seeing more and more that we do have a choice in that respect. Like I was saying before, if I catch it early enough, I have a choice. Do I want to keep going down with these thoughts or not? It doesn't mean they're not going to keep popping in again. I can be like, no, I don't want to go there, and then maybe for a little while they're not there, but they can keep popping in. But as long as I'm aware, I have that much choice, I think, in choosing. We have two, I call it like two aspects of our, I don't know if it's our brain or our minds, let's say, where we have just those thoughts, the conditioned thoughts that we have, they're just conditioned. They're not who we are. They're habitual, and they keep coming. But we also have that wisdom part of us, that part of mind, that it's called, I guess, mind. It's that part of it, the wisdom. We have that part too, which is another choice in a way. It's like you can choose the crazy person in your head thoughts, or you can choose your wisdom mind at almost at any time, if you're aware and you catch it early enough. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I would agree, because I absolutely think, tonight when I was driving home, my thoughts started going crazy, and it absolutely looked to me like I made the choice to go, hey, I know you're going off on one, I know you're going crazy, but there's just no point. Will you just give over and shut up? We'll be home when we're home, just, kind of thing. And it absolutely seemed to me that I was choosing to not listen to those thoughts. And it certainly felt to me that was an awareness that my thoughts can do that to me. Whereas it looks to me in past times, I would have had no awareness that was my thinking. I would have just had this story that it makes me a bad person. I've made an arrangement. I'm late for the arrangement. I'm letting people down. And that would have just seemed like an absolute reality. And it would have felt like my thoughts were informing me about a reality, and that I was bad because I'd done this. So it wouldn't have looked to me like I could have kind of, do you know what, your thinking's just doing that one way or another, this will work out, and there's no point, like we were saying earlier, going into that place of suffering, because suffering, what's happened has happened. I'm behind a bus, so suffering as well is absolutely pointless. So yeah, I would say,
I like that part about it, the reality too, because it's a good example of, when people say, but this is real, this is really happening, like what you just said, in your mind, it was real that you were a bad person because you were going to be late, and yet, no, like that wasn't real, it was, there's an infinite number of possibilities that can be real, or that can be our reality. And it's all just depending on where those thoughts are taking us, what we're choosing, which part of us we're choosing to listen to. And any almost this was an insight I just had recently, where I was future thinking about a situation in my family that's, looking dire at times, and sometimes, I just keep thinking there's no way out. This is how it's going to be, forever. And it's only going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. And oh my God, blah, blah, blah. But then I heard something that just made me realize, wait a minute, there's infinite possibilities for the future. And even though all signs point to this one future that I don't like, that's ridiculous to think, how do I know what the future's going to be? Out of an infinite number, it's going to be this way, the exact way that I've decided, that my stupid, crazy thoughts have decided it's going to be. And when I sort of thought of it that way, I'm like, well, every time I start thinking of those, if I notice that I'm thinking that future, why don't I just, for fun, imagine a different future, even though it's probably never going to be that. It's surely going to be the bad one. But why not think of all this, a few different other scenarios that maybe it could be, right? Yeah. And so that's what I try to do if I notice it. And certainly I feel better when I do that. And also I think it, I do believe in the whole law of attraction to a certain extent. If I keep imagining some alternate future that's good, maybe that will be it. Maybe it won't, but it doesn't really matter now because that's something I can do anyway.
Yeah, I can see exactly, those scenarios when something presents itself. And, when I work with people, I have people that come, and they say, well, this is happening and this is happening. So obviously this is what the outcome's going to be. Or, this has happened before and that's what the outcome was. So that's what the outcome's going to be again. And it's really interesting, isn't it, to see how our minds can do that and we don't see it as made up. And like you say, the things that when those thoughts land in our mind, it might be that someone else had got into the same situation as me tonight, behind a bus, and it might not have occurred to them that it makes them a bad person because they're late. It might have been something completely different. But our stuff looks as if it is real. And, to us, somehow, I don't know, there's something about us that's conditioned or whatever it is to kind of see that as real. And it's almost like your thoughts know what that is. And then absolutely, like you say, that awareness, one of the things that we do, I know there's some people in this call that have joined in with us. Some of the things that we do, we do little challenges, because that's exactly what you've described when you sort of said it occurred to you to, why don't I play around with other scenarios? And I think somehow when we play with the thinking in any way that occurs to us, or in ways that I might suggest it, and I know in your book you suggest different things that people do, and I think if we play with our thinking in that way, somehow it opens it up. Something opens in our mind, and it's like we begin to see there are other possibilities. And I think that's life-changing when we begin to see the thinking that we are having. And there's always, all human beings have always got stuff going on, haven't we? We've always got something that we can project a future, imagine a future about that isn't a future we want. We can always, I'm sure we've always in some situation like that. And it's massively helpful, I think, to kind of just play around with that in the way that you said, it just get playful with it and kind of see, well, what happens if you think about this differently?
Because it's so interesting, like, why does our mind always go to the worst case scenarios? And it's like,
Jill's gonna hate me. I'm 5 minutes late. Jill's gonna hate me forever.
and that's it. Like, I mean, when you said that whole thing, it would be like, so what? Like, you could have typed on your phone, pulled over, typed on your phone to Facebook, we're running a little late here, be 10 minutes. You could have messaged me. I could have, and it like, nobody really would have given a crap, because it's like, it's not like there's anyone hardly even coming on this list. That's another story. Another thing for you to worry about. No, but it's like, it's funny though, how, something like that is fairly insignificant in the scheme of things, especially it's me. It's not like you had somebody important like Michael Neal.
Neil, you're incredibly important to me. I love you.
It's funny though.
It is. It's
and the whole time my thinking wasn't nothing to do with the traffic. I didn't give a shit, really. I was just like, I was rattling away to Sue on my phone, like, and Deb's all there, and like, oh yeah, I just realised I wasn't having the thinking she was having.
Isn't it funny how
you're one of those people?
Separate
realities.
Sue Lackman said she would definitely care if we'd been late, and it's very, very real. I think she's saying I would have been a very bad person, and she would have fallen out with me and never spoken to me again had I been late.
You should be so lucky, Deb.
You didn't even think of it as that bad.
I love how life always presents these things to us. We always, it's not very long before, like when we play around like you were saying, you know, when you kind of have this idea to see what happens if you just think something different. You know, if you imagine, I don't know, give yourself a thing of thinking up 3 different scenarios besides the one that you've thought of, something like this. When we play games like this, I love how life never takes very long to present us with something, because like today, obviously I knew we'd got this call, so I was kind of thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to be talking to Jill about anxiety, you know, what have I felt anxious about lately? And I thought, yeah, no, I don't really get anxious, this is cool.
We were saying
then the bus comes
and then
I'll show you.
Along comes the anxious bus.
Yeah, it does. It does present us, you know, and I'm not sure what your challenges are, but I some months back I was doing some challenges with one of my groups, and I just did, it was, you know, for like the month, that just to notice that your negative things that you say or think, because, you know, which seems like a bad thing, because for some people it's not actually a good thing to do, because they're always negative and it gets them worse. But like for me, it was good, because I always think I'm such a positive person, but if start to become aware of any negative stuff, like I was surprised how often I might say sarcastically something that was a little mean or negative, or, you know, things like that I didn't even realize I was doing. And just so, you know, these challenges are great because they bring these things into awareness. And then I had another challenge that was to notice the positive and good things, nice things that you do, because we don't notice those either, you know. And just bringing it all into awareness, anything that's can bring things to light is great.
That's exactly what it is to me. It is just becoming aware. And I think it's personal, you know, what you get from these challenges. It's not, and we don't have a set thing that, you know, but it's playing around, because I can really see, you know, since I came across this understanding, and since it was kind of, you know, the whole, somebody sort of said, and Sid said about separate realities, and thought creates our reality, and these, you know, that was really, really new to me when I first came across it. And what I noticed that I did was play around with it and challenge myself. And a little bit like, you know, today when I was kind of thinking about this call and kind of thinking, I don't get anxious in the way that I used to be an incredibly insecure person. And that insecurity would definitely kind of play out as being incredibly anxious. If I kind of used to think that I was responsible for pretty much everybody in the world feeling okay. You know, it was if somebody didn't feel right, well, that was down to me, so I needed to do something about it. So, and it used to cause me incredible anxiety, because I would be really worrying all the time about people, you know, whether people were okay, and kind of just. And since I've come across this understanding, I noticed that what I did was challenge myself and play around with it and do exactly the kinds of things that you've said. And I think those little playful challenges do kind of awaken our awareness. We begin to notice what our mind is doing, where I think our mind can be very, very quick and very, very clever in, you know, you can kind of be, it's almost like I've noticed with myself since I've become more aware, you know, we can be kind of saying, yeah, it's white. Yeah, it's white. Yeah, it's white. It's black, isn't it? It's black. And we haven't even noticed that switch. And I definitely think kind of these little challenges and these things, it wakes up our awareness of those things, and we see, oh gosh, look what my mind just did. And I wasn't aware my mind could even do that.
Yeah. And being honest with yourself that way too, you know, because it's easy to deny, you know, like I said, you know, thinking I'm such a positive person, and maybe comparatively, you know, maybe I am, but to, you know, to be honest, and to be okay to be willing to look at yourself and the thoughts that come, because it's not personal, you know. Even me being negative, sometimes it's habit more than anything, and becoming aware of our habits is what helps them to just disappear all by themselves. And the other thing is, with speaking of all by themselves, you know, we hear Sid and some of the older, first generation teachers talking about do nothing and stuff, and we say that too. It's true. There is nothing to do, even though it sounds like we're telling you to do things. we you don't. There's nothing you have to do. It's just it's what occurs to you, and what and it's an exploration, really, an exploration of our minds and everything else. And if you're just curious about it, not the doing part, like when people who have anxiety, let's say, and they are just learning this stuff, and they're doing it as a self-help, to find a cure for their anxiety. And it seems that just in the people I've talked to or noticed that, when you're using this or trying to use it as a self-help, then you are trying to do something, and you're trying to cure yourself, and there's nothing wrong with you, so there's nothing to cure. But that's when people tend to not get insights and things, and it's only until they're finally like, whatever, I don't care anymore, I give up. And then suddenly, they'll get an insight. It's quite amazing. But if you just do it as for fun, like, I mean, I think I'm lucky in that I wasn't looking for self-help or anything when I heard this stuff. I was just kind of curious about things and learned this and thought, that's cool, and then wanted to explore more, and then things changed, and then anxiety I never knew I had disappeared. Which is amazing, because it sounds crazy that you don't know you have it, but that's because you think that's just normal. Like, it's not normal to live with a giant clump of thoughts, always buzzing in your head and seeming to be making you feel bad. That's not normal, but we think it's normal because we think that's life and how it has to be. It's how freeing when it's just gone, most of the time.
Yeah, and I think that is it. It's most of it, most of the time. But I think we kind of, again, sometimes we're always going to have anxious thinking at times, I guess. And to me, it looks less important now. Whereas that thinking would have been the be all and anything, everything. It looks way less important when I have those thoughts. And like you said, yeah, definitely. The getting curious thing. I love being curious and playful. I definitely think if I was going to tell anyone to do anything, it would be kind of just get curious and get playful. It somehow that seems to open our mind. I don't know, like you say.
It's a magic part.
Yeah, it is very difficult, and I think it is. I think one of the hardest things that human beings find to do is nothing. When we kind of say, you know what, there's nothing to do. It's like, no, I want to be doing something. How can I do? How can I change this? And I was incredibly lucky when I first came across this. I just had a huge insight, which it just felt like a whole bunch of stuff that used to drive me crazy just kind of went. And then there was a whole load of other stuff still there. And it is really weird, isn't it, how you kind of don't get to choose what falls away and what stays. And so then I just kind of started playing around with the other stuff. And I noticed, some crazy things hang around. Like, one of my things has always, I never like making phone calls. I'm
me
not,
too. That's me.
And since I've come across this understanding, the things that I will do that I wouldn't have done before, are unbelievable, like transformational, life-changing. And then I kind of get my phone and I'm like, yeah, I'll do it later.
I still have that one too. That's so funny, because I hate the phone. And yeah, I mean, I will do them now if I would do them even then if I had to, but I still, same thing. But and then yet you'll jump out of an airplane or something, or do the zip line.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I think I feel like you've touched on some of this. A couple of the things that my journey has, if you like, kind of taught me is to just be kind and considerate with myself, honest and kind and considerate, and, you know, a bit gentle with myself sometimes if I need it, and, you know, sometimes give myself a big kick if I feel like I need that too, you know, all of it. And the other thing, when we were first talking and we were talking about Sid saying about change your thoughts, things like that, I know one of the things that we've kind of here, one of the things that we've sort of been exploring and talking about is how it feels to me like it's all on the table. It feels a little bit like there was a time when I kind of had this feeling, no, you've got to do it like this and it's got to be this way. And it kind of looks to me, if in any given moment I feel like I can change my, you know, if I'm having some really shitty thinking that I don't want, and I just kind of say to myself, right, change that thinking, move away, and I change it, then great, change my thinking. Whereas if I get into that place where I'm going, right, I'm having this thinking, I don't like it, right, the answer is to change it. Oh, it's not changing. I'm a useless person. I'm rubbish. I should know better. It looks to me like, do what's helpful and go with what's helpful in that moment, and don't shut anything down. Like when you were talking about the possibilities before, just feels like we live in this world of possibility. So don't kind of shut yourself off from anything. And the awareness part to me is kind of following what's helpful, if you like.
Yep, definitely. And that whole thing too of where people, you know, because they think when they learn this and they've learned they don't have to do anything, and then they're like, and they, you know, they learn you can't change your thoughts, so then they're like, oh no, I can't change my thoughts. You know,
Yeah.
you get it adds more, another layer. But sometimes you can change your thoughts. You know, all we're kind of saying is it's not really sustainable to, you know, to some of those other techniques that people have for changing thoughts can sometimes add more burden to you, you know. But if those things work for you too, that's great. You know, there's an infinite number of things that will help us feel better. And unfortunately, the ego mind kind of catches on sometimes too. And when we find one that works for us for a while, you know, oh, I'll go take that walk again, because we think it's the walk that's curing us. And then one time the walk doesn't work, and we're, you know, even worse. And it's like, uh-oh, no.
Yeah. And that's where it's kind of looks to me like, you know, the awareness part and getting to know yourself and getting to know, you know, being honest with yourself, all these kinds of things, then it's much, much easier to stick with what's helpful in that moment. You know, if it feels helpful to, and it feels like you can change your thinking, don't kind of get yourself trapped in that, oh no, I've heard I can't change my thinking, so I shouldn't be doing that. And then if you're trying to, oh, I'm rubbish because I should be able to, it just looks to me like, yeah, you know, stick with what's helpful to you right now in this moment. And it honestly feels to me like, with this awareness, and as I build awareness of who I am, what I see is that there is always something there that is helpful. I don't always see it in any given moment, but it just feels, you know, if I'm open and I'm more aware, it just feels like there is always something helpful available to me.
And that's, I think, what Sid meant, and some of the other teachers, when they say look for a good feeling, because that's what's helpful. You know, what's helpful gives you a good feeling. So if something's giving you a good feeling or seeming to give you it, you know, then it's helpful, then that's good. And that's all I think Sid was saying, you know, just go to the good feeling.
Yeah, that makes total sense, actually, doesn't it? Because it, you know, when I start beating myself up for whatever it is, whether it's, you know, because I can't change my thinking, or I am changing my thinking and I shouldn't, or whatever it is, it doesn't come with a nice feeling. And yet what is helpful actually does come with a nice feeling. And it never ceases to amaze me, you know, when I'm with somebody, you know, and we're having this conversation and they have an insight, you know, what people kind of say, it probably would never have been what I had suggested to somebody. And, you know, they're kind of saying it, and you can tell when they're saying it, whether it's a really good feeling and they're very excited about it, or whether they've just dropped out of this really deep anxiety and they're just feeling some relief, you can absolutely see there's a good feeling in that when they share in that way.
Yeah. I mean, there is a caveat to that, because we also get a good feeling when we, get drunk. and but on the other hand, that is also, I really believe that's our wisdom too. We know the things that make us feel good, or that we think are the causes. And for me, that's what I used to do. And, and thank goodness for that, because that saved me from probably having panic attacks and things. A few drinks didn't kill me. and I felt better. It was, self-medicating. But what we've learned is you can get the same feeling. That it wasn't the drinks giving me that feeling. It was that my thoughts happened to change. They settled down. The alcohol helped my mind to settle down. But thoughts, I can create whatever thoughts, whatever feelings I want, because it happens through thought, not through the alcohol. And so just seeing that, but it's wisdom too, even doing things that aren't good for us, even for the overeaters, or for the people with other eating disorders. You get the voices telling you to do these things, and you do feel better when you do it. But
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they have bad side effects.
And then I think, again, like, if we point back to that awareness and getting to know yourself, rather than kind of going into this place of beating yourself up and shoulding all over yourself, as we said earlier, I think, again, then if we kind of look to awareness and look to be aware, we don't have to necessarily go into those particular problems that we've got, but just playing around with this and looking in the direction of how our thinking creates our reality, and just seeing what we see, somehow magically things do fall away. That and yet it seems, like you said earlier, the more that I'm absolutely working on a problem, the more it feels like that problem like sticks to me like glue. Whereas if I just kind of look to see what I see, look to see what I can find, play around, get curious, it almost feels like that is a more helpful way to go. Yeah. Except when it isn't.
Yeah. Because when it is our reality in the moment, and the system is working just as it's supposed to, right? When we're thinking some future thing is the reality, we feel a certain way. But when we play it around with it and look at other realities, that could be where the magic could happen, where if you can, even just the fact that you can imagine other realities means that one isn't real, and then poof, your anxiety can just disappear in a moment when you see that it's not real. Because the only reason we're anxious is because we think we're in this really bad reality, but it's all just this thoughts telling us that.
Yeah. I could just carry on talking to you all night, to be honest, but I just wondered if anyone who was here, if anyone had a question or a comment, or if anyone else wants, I just want you all to myself. It's been way too long since we've had a conversation, Jill, and I'm really enjoying this. I'm loving it. So yeah, I can talk way too much, I'm afraid. Is that a reality?
Is that a bad thing?
Insecurity.
So I just wonder if anyone on the call would like to join in at all. If you've got a question, you can type it in, or you can put your hand up, or you can unmute yourself, or I'm more than happy to carry on this conversation with you if nobody does jump in with anything.
We don't bite usually.
Well, not on a Wednesday anyway.
Anybody?
Oh, well, we might just have to carry on talking. Well, if anybody, feel free to kind of unmute, put your hand up, join in at any time. We actually don't bite, no, and it is fine. It's great if you've got questions or anything like that, but we'll just carry on having our conversation, and if anyone thinks of anything and wants to join in, they're more than welcome.
That works. Got any other things on your list to discuss? I feel like we've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, I feel like we've covered a lot of ground. We kind of just jumped straight in, didn't we? And went right in there with
that's what's so interesting about this stuff too, that it is that simple. Like we basically just covered everything there's to know, and whether we're talking anxiety or anything else, it's all related. It's all the same thing. Even relationships and stuff, because you can start, your mind can start doing crazy things about your relationships or yourself within a relationship, thinking that's all back to the insecurity, and your conditioning and everything else. It's all the same stuff.
Do you know what's been really amazing me lately? I've been watching, this life goes on, all right. I've got a couple of daughters, a son, they have their lives, they're in relationships, they're, in various stages of doing all sorts of things, they're grown up. All three of my children are grown up, and and I know earlier you were kind of saying there's something going on in your personal life that looks as if it could turn out a bad way. And I've really noticed, kind of watching some of the most important people in my life and seeing when they get themselves into scrapes, and my mind kind of starts going, okay, right, you need to jump in here and you need to sort this out and you need to help this person, and kind of just noticing how that wisdom that you were talking about, and how things just tend to work themselves out. And it's just I get anxious about it. And maybe it doesn't turn out the way that I think it should. Maybe a relationship with somebody breaks down. Maybe there is some sadness and things happen. But what I notice again and again and again is these people come back at some point to a place of equilibrium, I suppose, to a place of balance, to a place, they come back there all on their own.
Yeah, well, it's really helpful to us and to them, knowing what we know is the best thing that we can do for other people in our lives who are struggling or going through trouble, because we can't tell them, if they're interested, we can tell them if they ask us, if they come for advice or whatever, but I don't know about you, most people in my life, they don't think my advice is necessarily the right advice. Some people do, but it's more, it's on us, the more we can see they're not broken. And it's not easy. That alone is a full-time job, to see that they're not broken and that they do have their own wisdom, and that we can't be their wisdom. We try, but we, that's not going to be as helpful to them as them being able to. They can't even hear their own wisdom if we're always telling them what to do too, or trying to explain it. And I try to tell this, like I have a friend of mine whose daughter's having a lot of issues, and my friend keeps talking to me saying, can you talk to her? I'm like, she doesn't want to talk to me. I said, believe me, there's a million people in my own family I would love to be able to help and talk to, but they don't want to talk to me either. We can't make people. I said, but I can help you, to my friend. I'm like, if you're interested, I can help you, so that maybe you being in a different place in your own mind will also help her too. It's so hard and that's a practice every day, to be able to do this with our people.
Yeah. Just over 12 months ago, I had a thing with my daughter, as you do, mums and daughters sometimes, we clashed a little bit, and it was incredibly difficult to not do stuff, to kind of see that in spite of everything that was going on, she was okay, and so was I, and kind of to see that I was incredibly grateful for what felt like the tiniest little bit of understanding that and it kind of felt like it shrunk down to this tiny little bit, this is my little girl and it shouldn't have gone that way, you know what our mind does. And yeah, it was incredibly helpful. Just the tiniest little bit of seeing that I had was incredibly helpful. And yeah, to kind of allow her to do what she needed to do was very hard at times, but it was really, really good to stay in this conversation and be reminded that in spite of what my thinking was doing and sometimes saying, was that she had her own wisdom. She, and it's really, really great because things have just worked out beautifully between us. We are closer and it is the best thing ever between us now. But one of the things, I know anybody that knows me might have heard this story, but one of the things that, since I've come across this understanding, that I am incredibly grateful for was the very first thing. When I first came across this, my stuff was around relationships. I was really struggling in relationships. And so I'm still in the relationship with the same man, but at this time I had a lot of thinking that he needed to do things differently, for me to be okay. And one of the things was, I believed that he needed to dance with me so that
dancing.
And do you know what, to this day he still doesn't dance with me, and I'm incredibly grateful that he doesn't, because I think if that had turned out the way that I thought it should, I would have kind of got away with the idea that what this understanding does is make you get what it is you think you want. And what I've noticed in life is sometimes I get exactly what I want, and sometimes I get something completely different to what I want. And my okayness isn't dependent on either of those things.
Yeah, and that's where the real, meat of this is, because bad things, what we call bad things, are still going to happen. People are still going to die, and that's of course where our mind's going to go, and we get crazy about it, and maybe these bad things are going to happen. This understanding doesn't make life all up wonderful. Life is still a roller coaster. Yeah, I mean, it sucks. It's too bad that it doesn't. But it does help us to navigate those lows, when those bad things happen, as they inevitably will. We're able to deal with it much better. And of course, at the time when the bad things actually do happen that we, maybe thought about, it's usually, we know what to do in the moment, in an emergency situation or whatever, all the things that we might be so scared. Oh no, what if this happens? What if this happens? I can't take it. I can't handle it. We handle it. We may break down afterwards and be like, oh my God. But at the time, all thoughts disappear and we kick into gear, and we handle what we have to handle. And yeah, people are going to die, people are going to be sick, and we will be sad, and we will be all those, anything. We will be anxious, we will be every kind of thing that a human being is, and that's okay. It's all okay. It's okay to be anxious. Yeah. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be everything. And that, knowing that it's okay, because it's the thinking it's not okay, that's really what causes the suffering, not the anger, not the anxiety. It's the, why is this happening to me? It's always me.
I've been reading a book just recently. I can't remember what the name of it is, but it's about a lady who was in a cult, and she tells the story of how she kind of got into the cult. And at the very beginning of the book, she said something, like, people don't join cults. And I can remember, as I said, my stuff was around relationships, and I was in a very unhealthy relationship for a long time. And it's the same, I can remember when I was having some counseling at the end, when I got out of my relationship, and somebody kind of saying to me, if on the first date somebody smacks you in the face, you're not going to have a second date with them. It kind of doesn't happen like that. And it's a similar sort of thing, we don't get into things in that way. But what I noticed about myself, I was, you know, you would call it not in a great place for a long, long time. And, you know, this book, that this lady was in this cult for 10 years, and she was describing some of the things that went on and what happened to her. But in between it, you know, during this 10 years, she also talked about jobs that she had and things that she did in her life. And what I have really noticed, you know, when I look back at those 20 years to me, I had 3 children and brought 3 children up, and I did all sorts of things. You know, I was creative. I'm a seamstress. I made wedding dresses. And there was always this thread of that okay part of me. You know, my life didn't kind of stop in all ways. And I just see human beings, we're awesome. We are just amazing what we can do. Like you say, with all sorts of thinking, we are incredible what we can still do. And I think kind of seeing that and realizing that, and then seeing that we don't have to suffer as much as we do during these times. And I think those two things, just knowing what we're capable of with any circumstances going on, we're frigging amazing human beings.
Yeah, we are. But we are human beings, and that's the important thing to remember too.
Yeah.
Because we somehow, you know, if we think that we're going to somehow be superhuman after, because we know this secret thing, unfortunately it doesn't work that way, and that just creates more suffering.
Yeah. Well, we've got to 5 to 8. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know where that time went. That was just an amazing conversation with you. Now, I know a lot of the people on here are probably your people, but I can definitely see some of mine here too. So I just want, you know, if anybody wants to find out more about you and this brilliant book that you read that I can highly recommend, where can they find out about you, Jill, and where can they get the book? And
the book is called Victim of Thought: Seeing Through the Illusion of Anxiety, and it's available on Amazon in all formats: audio, paperback, and Kindle. Very cheap. It's barely costs anything. So, and then the other place would be to check out my blog at whatdidyouDowithJill.com, and you can contact me through that. And there's I don't know, 200 blog posts or something up there, and you know, other information about me there. So that would be where to go. And I'm on Facebook and all that.
So this week, for any of my people, Beck is on holiday this week. That's why I'm here. I have got Lucy by my side, but yeah, that's why
we're not allowed to see Lucy though.
No, Lucy, you can't see.
Keep her hidden there.
It's way too expensive to see me.
But every Wednesday evening we do a YouTube live. So this week we did this on Zoom, because for some reason YouTube have changed their settings and they wouldn't allow me to bring a guest on this evening. We did try.
You probably need Becky to do it.
I think we do. I think when Beck goes away, everything just kind of crumbles. You know, we don't. She did say to me, "Don't get too comfortable on my own and kick her out."
So, he wouldn't have let you go get the dog that late either.
No way.
No way. I put in the spreadsheet earlier.
Yeah,
tell I know her.
Yeah, Beck is the organised person in this in this establishment. So yeah, it's all going to pot while Beck's away, but we're doing our best. So I thought the idea was to bring on a fabulous guest so that, you know, we didn't look quite so inadequate. No, it's been a delight and a pleasure speaking to you and catching up. It's been way too long. We need to have these catch-ups a little bit more. Oh yeah, Alana,
thank you for inviting me.
Alana just put she was soaking it all in and really enjoying the conversation. So it's been a lovely conversation. But yeah, so Jill, we can be found. I don't think Jill is any quieter than I am on I often see you on Facebook and doing lives and out and about, and yeah, we are too. Dare to be you. We're all over the place. We're easy to find if you want to know more. But I know both of us absolutely love being in this conversation and love helping people, and we're always up for, you know, doing either of those things if we possibly can. But
Yep.
it was great to see so many of you here tonight. Really. What?
She's a dickhead.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we only let the famous Lucy, slip on for a couple of minutes. So yeah, so
thanks, Jill. It was awesome.
It was really
Thank you.
to see you, and thank you everybody else who joined us for this evening. I hope you enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Bye.
everybody. Bye. Bye.